Hey guys, my name is Bijan from Product Management Exercises, and I'm here today with my product manager friend Gabe, who is in San Francisco. Today we're going to do a product interview, product improvement question. We're going to do a mock interview together, and hopefully this will be a good learning experience for you all. So the question that we're going to tackle today is how would you improve Google Maps?
Okay. So I think to start off with, just want to clarify my understanding of the product to make sure we're on the same page. So my understanding is that there's a few features. First is that it provides maps, pretty much the entire world, including things like Street View. The second thing is that it allows people to navigate around, whether you're walking or bicycling or on the car, including turn by turn. And the third thing is that it allows people to search for, I'm going to call it sort of points of interest, like restaurants or stores, and find kind of rich information about those points of interest. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Great. So it's a really big product. So for the purpose of the exercise, I think I'm going to narrow it down. So I think the most interesting, to improve is the points of interest section. And I kind of, that's even itself really big. So I want to narrow it down further and say, let's focus on improving how Google Maps deals with people interacting with restaurants and searching for restaurants. And I'm really interested in that because for a couple of reasons. I think that there's a lot of upside in terms of the functionality in that area. And kind of related to that, I think that Google Maps is losing out on a lot of potential traffic and engagement to its competitors in that specific domain. So for example, Yelp, Foursquare, even, Open Table, things like that right now, or maybe even things like DoorDash and whatnot. A lot of people are completely skipping out on Google Maps and going straight to those competitor properties. So I think there's a lot of potential upside to work on there. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Awesome. But just to take a step back, I want to specifically focus on how people interact with restaurants and dining out, actually. So I mentioned DoorDash and things like that, but I don't want to worry about that. I want to talk about how they dine and actually go out to eat. So the next step is let's think of a metric and how we want to improve the product. So I always like to think about it's kind of ARM metrics, the acquisition, activation, retention, and monetization. So when I think through those, I think acquisition, like pretty much everyone has already used Google Maps at least once and sort of at least somehow interacted with a restaurant there. And so I'd say they've been acquired and probably activated as well. But then we sort of more the retention, or you can also say just general engagement. That's where I think there's a lot of upside. And monetization, I think that we don't need to really worry. Google makes its money from ads primarily, and we'll leave it at that. And it's about making this a really sticky ecosystem. So I really want to focus on the engagement side of things.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and if I had to operationalize this, particularly with interacting with restaurants, I probably want to operationalize it as the number of searches for restaurants on Google Maps in a sort of weekly or monthly period. And I'd also want to look at specifically how many searches per active user. So for an active user, how many searches do they make per week or per month? And I want to see that trending up as sort of a success metric.
Okay.
So I guess, okay, so the next step then I would want to be looking at which type of user I'd want to focus on. I like to think of, I think on the top end, so to speak, we have the power users that are always using Google Maps. Then on the bottom end, we have people that almost never use Google Maps. They're like very infrequent or users. And then we have the kind of So we have infrequent, I call them infrequent, occasional, and power. And I really want to focus on those occasional users, people that are using it from time to time. But how do we really increase the engagement of those users? Does that
Makes
sound good?
sense. Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So the next thing I'd want to do is to think through some pain points and problems for that user group. So do you mind if I just take a minute or so to think through that?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, I think to start off with, I'd want to think about the user journey, and then from there I can identify some pain points which with some of those elements of the user journey. So the user journey, I think, is decide you want to go out for dinner, find an appropriate restaurant, coordinate with others if you're dining out with someone else, make a reservation, or try to figure out when you should arrive to avoid the line, or figure out like what the wait time is going to be. Choose the best meal once you're there. You eat, and then maybe you provide a review, or some people are going to sort of share what they've eaten on Instagram or social media or something like that. I think, yeah, that's pretty much the user journey.
Okay, sense.
And then I've actually written out a little table here, which I guess you can't see, but I think for each of those, I can write down some pain points. So deciding wanting to go out for dinner, I don't really think there's any. That's not really a pain point. People just know that they want to go out for dinner. I'm not going to deal with that. Finding an appropriate restaurant, pain point there is probably being overwhelmed with choice and just can't choose a restaurant. I know that's a problem for me often. There's just so many things that look good. Coordinating with others. The pain point there could be just difficult to coordinate with others. I don't know. Everyone's probably had that experience where no one can seem to gain consensus on what time is the best, or everyone's coming from different locations and everyone has slightly different tastes in food and different preferences. So that can be a pain point. Making a reservation or getting a table at a walk-in restaurant. I think getting a reservation is kind of, that's, like open table and things like that. But a pain point definitely is knowing when to show up to easily get a seat or walk in. And actually, I believe Google Maps does kind of address that right now. I think there is like estimated wait time there. And then we have choosing the best item on the menu. The pain point there is can't decide what food to order, which is a very common one. Eating, not going to worry about that. Providing a review, maybe you don't know what to write, or it's just too busy to do it. And sharing what you've eaten on social media, again, maybe you don't know what to write, or it's difficult to take a good photo or something like that. So to prioritize those, so I want to prioritize them based on just impact to the user to decide to choose a good pain point. So I would say overwhelmed with choice, can't choose a restaurant. I'd say that has a very high impact to the user. That's very, very common. Difficult to coordinate with others, choosing a restaurant. That I'd say is moderate because it can be very painful, but it's only painful for some of the users, some of the time. Don't know when to show up, moderate because it's only an issue for some restaurants some of the time. Can't decide what food to order. I'd say high impact. It's a very common issue. Providing, don't know what to write, what review to write. I'd say low. It's not that painful. If you don't know what to write, it's like you just don't leave a review. It's not that impactful to the user. And same with not sure what to share on social media. I'd say that's also, it's only an issue for a very small number of people that really care about that kind of stuff, I think. I mean, it could be interesting if you create some kind of solution that made it really easy. I'm sure that could, but for the purpose of this, I'm going to say it's a low impact to the user.
Got it.
So that just leaves two high impact pain points, which is being overwhelmed with choice when finding an appropriate restaurant and having difficulty choosing what food to order. So I'm going to choose those two pain points to continue with and move on to creating solutions.
Got it. Okay, great.
Okay. So, okay, now I'm just going to come up with solutions. So if you can give me a minute or so just to brainstorm some ideas as well.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I've got a few solutions. I'm going to order them by according to the pain point that I mentioned. So choosing a restaurant. So actually, just to back up for a second, I think that one of Google's competitive advantages and core competencies is in building algorithms and incorporating all these different types of data in order to rank things in order of preference. That's what they do with search. So I think that when I was thinking through some of these solutions, that was sort of what came to mind and something we could do here. So in choosing a restaurant, you could show a selection of the top 3 or even the top 1 restaurant you should try next based on other data you have. So maybe Google could infer what they have the data on what you've searched for previously. They have geolocation data, so they can even infer where you've been, and maybe you have some reviews you've left previously as well. And then they also have data on trending restaurants and things like that. So combining all of that, they could say, here is the next restaurant you should try, or even the 3, and maybe even show a match rate, kind of like Netflix or something like that. The next solution is showing if your friend went to the restaurant and what they rated it as, kind of like a Facebook type thing. I might see that Bijan went to this restaurant and he rated it 5 stars. So that might really pique my interest and make me want to go there. I also was thinking showing the most popular restaurants in the area, but I can probably, I'll just go through first, and then we can strike those off later. So those are solutions for choosing a restaurant. Now for deciding what food to order, I think similarly you could suggest foods based on prior food that you've ordered. So you could, if you go to a restaurant, look it up, it could say like this is the dish that's most recommended to you, or maybe the top 3 dishes, the best appetizer, the best main, and the best dessert. We'd recommend for you at this based on food you previously ordered. And just general ratings and popularity and things like that. I think it would I think the interface might require you to enter in what you like though, so that could be a little bit challenging. Which brings me to the next solution, which is maybe people could fill out a questionnaire or some kind of wizard form on Google Maps where they answer like a list of 10 or whatever, however many questions they want to, and about their taste and their preferences. And then they can get restaurant and dish recommendations based on that. And, the more questions you answer, kind of like OK Cupid or something like that, the higher your match is, So you could start with just answering 10, but maybe there's like hundreds if you really wanted to, right? So the more power user types might. And that could be something that you invest in, and that could hook you into the system because you've invested all this and you really want to know, what it's going to spit back out at you. And then you could even have, email program, push notifications when there's a new restaurant that has a high match for your preferences. Similarly, you could show dishes that your friends have ordered or rated highly and what they rated as. And then again, you could show the most popular dishes at the restaurant. So I think that's 7 solutions, but I think I can immediately cross off a few. It's like showing the most popular restaurants and the most popular dishes. I think actually Google kind of already does that, so just strike those off. And having people fill out a questionnaire, I like that, but it's not really a solution in and of itself. I feel like it's more of an implementation detail for the top 3 restaurants and the top foods. I think it's kind of like, how would you get that data? Well, as part of that, you could have this questionnaire to fill out. But I wouldn't say it's necessarily a solution in and of itself. It's just a way to enable the top restaurant and top food recommendations. So that leaves me with 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe. Yes, leaves me 4. So now I think I want to prioritize those based on the impact on engagement and the effort to build them.
Okay.
Does that sound good? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So the top 3 restaurants you should try next. based on prior selections and geolocation data and trending restaurants. So in terms of interface, I'm envisioning sort of a card at the top of the restaurants tab, maybe when you, because maybe there, I believe there is actually, I don't think there is a restaurants tab. I think there is like a local guide tab at the moment on Google Maps. But yeah, maybe if you search restaurants, maybe or maybe they will create a tab something like that. Or if you search for restaurants, maybe a card comes up and says, you know, here are the top 3 restaurants we believe you should try next. And a match rate similar to Netflix. For the data, as I mentioned, we have trending restaurants based on geolocation data and searches. We also have geolocation data and searches that this individual has made. We can use ratings made by the user, and we can also have the user potentially fill out this additional kind of survey to enrich their match rate. The impact on engagement, I say, is really high because this directly addresses a real top problem that almost every person faces when choosing a restaurant, which is the right restaurant that I should try tonight. The effort to build, I'd say it's hard to know. I mean, this is Google here that kind of has a core expertise in these kinds of things. So I'm going to say medium. A lot of the data is there already, like I mentioned. I'm excluding the kind of survey aspect of it, but the rest of the data I'd say is already there. But you need to create a new algorithm and train that algorithm. So I'd say it's medium. The next solution is showing if your friend went to the restaurant and what they rated it as. I envision this would look something similar to Facebook shows when a friend likes a post or a page. I'd say that impact on engagement is medium. First of all, it kind of relies on friends to have rated restaurants, so you're not going to have a whole lot of data initially. So it's not going to be that impactful. And also, it doesn't necessarily tell you what you like personally. It tells you what your friends like, which is a good. We know that's influential, but I don't think it's as impactful. And so I was going to say the effort is. I think it's definitely easier than the other algorithm, but so I guess it's low. But I still say that if the other one's medium, this needs to be low, or if this one's medium, the other one needs to be high. So since I rated the first one medium, I can say this one's low. But it's going to could take a long time to get sufficient data to make this interesting. So from that perspective, it's kind of hard. You've got to so maybe not technically hard, but it's hard because you've now got to figure out how to get everyone to start rating things actually and liking things to actually make it, useful. So suggesting the top 1 to 2 dishes to order at a restaurant based on prior food you've ordered and ratings by other people. So right now, Google Maps shows you the most popular dishes, but we could easily take that one step further and highlight the 1 to 2 that are most recommended to you, rather than just these are the ones that are most popular for the average person. And we can also use that kind of questionnaire format that I had, or tool that I had to enrich the data further. I'd say that the impact again is high, and the effort I'm going to say is high as well, because it kind of it requires you to enter in what you've eaten, and that's much harder to passively identify than restaurants you visited. Google can see based on geolocation data that I probably went to this restaurant around the corner, but they don't know that I had the pasta or the fish, right? So it's going to be harder to implement there. And then showing dishes your friends have ordered or rated highly and what they rated as. Again, I see this being kind of similar to Facebook. Again, it's medium impact because it's not as useful. It's not as personalized as if it directly matched to your personal preferences. And I'm going to put that as low as well, because it just requires you to kind of map what your friends have liked. So based on the prioritization, I would choose to focus first on showing people, so I want to focus on the ones that had the highest impact on engagement. I'm not as worried about effort to build here, just because we're talking about Google, have an army of engineers, and maybe that's an incorrect assumption, but I think that they have an army of exceptional engineers. So I want to focus on things that are going to have the highest impact on engagement, rather than if I was at a scrappy small startup, I might focus on the things that are like faster and easier to implement. So I want to focus on showing the top 3 restaurants, and in fact, I would focus on, if I had to choose just one, I would choose the top 3 restaurants, because it has the highest impact, and I believe it has high impact, and I believe it will be more viable to build than selecting the 1 to 2 top dishes.
Got it.
Now, okay, so now I want to look at what like success metrics. I think I kind of mentioned them a little bit before, but I'll just reiterate there. I would be wanting to look at the total number of restaurant searches per month, and the median number of restaurant searches per active user per month. Of course, I'd probably want to look at also, I'm not sure if I envision there to be any direct interaction with those, but if I was going to do some kind of A/B test, I would probably want to be looking at the people that experience that feature, whether there's a difference in those searches per month, and median number of restaurant searches per user per month. And that would give me an idea about whether that feature is driving engagement with the restaurant feature of Google Maps. So to summarize, I'd focus on improving engagement with the restaurant feature of Google Maps. Identified 2 top pain points, being overwhelmed by choice with choosing a restaurant and deciding on what food to order. Identified 6 solutions and narrowed it down to, I think I actually identified 7 solutions and narrowed it down to 1. And that's building out an algorithm to match restaurants to users' preferences, and then displaying the top 3 to try. And I would measure success by looking at the total number of restaurant searches per month and the median number of restaurant searches per active user per month for the users who are given that, are shown that feature, as compared to the users who are given sort of the base case, the control condition, which is not having that feature.
Got it.
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This was really good. Thank you for the answer. I'm just going to go over the answer that you provided quickly, and then give some feedback. I think it's valuable for the audience here.
Oh, yeah.
I think the structure of the answer was actually really good. You started out with clarification and like really narrowing down the scope of the question as soon as possible. You talked about one particular goal that you had in mind, which was driving the engagement. You picked a particular user group, which was very important, and that basically allowed you to really focus on them later. And then you went, we talked about the pain points, you prioritized the pain points, and then you talked about the solutions that address those pain points and then prioritize them, and you came up with metrics. So structure-wise, I think it was great. I think that the user grouping was really good. I think the description of the product was good. I think the pain points were very meaningful. I think you came up with good lists of solutions. I'll have some feedback around that in a minute. But overall, I think a couple areas that I think you could have potentially done a little bit better. One would have been that I think it's good to have a goal at the beginning, which is like something like engagement. And it's okay to not tie yourself with a very, very specific metric until you actually have the solutions in mind. Because if you don't know what the solution is, it might be a little bit hard for you to know how to measure the effectiveness of that solution, or to measure the success of that particular solution. So maybe it would have been okay to just say, hey, I want to drive engagement. And after you've highlighted what solution you want to build, then you talk to the actual metrics that are going to help you measure the success of that feature. The second feedback that I'll have is related to the pain points associated with the user group that you pick. I wonder if the pain points that you highlighted are more or less the same across these different user groups. And if they are, then maybe we needed to be a little bit more specific with our pain points so that they're more specific to the user group. Or maybe we can just like say as a disclaimer that, these pain points that we came up with, I can actually see them apply to other user groups as well. Just so that the interviewer is aware that you came up with a bunch of pain points and you are aware that they're not necessarily very specific to that particular user group. I think you did a pretty good job of like narrowing down the pain points to like 2 particular ones. I think your solutions were really good. You came up with a large list of them. I would have probably spent less time on evaluation of the solutions. I think you can kind of stay at a high level and say, the implementation effort for, showing where friends are, I think it's not too hard, we can build it. Or I think it's hard and here's why, and move on to the next one. I think same thing with all the other ones. I think you could have kind of spend less time on the evaluation. I personally really liked your idea of encouraging the user to actually go through a bunch of questions and then basically help Google understand them better, and then use then have recommendation made based on that, or also like showing friends recommending, showing what places your friends went to. I mean, I think the trade-off to that is that there could be some privacy concerns that you'll have to figure out how to address. But I think it's interesting to know, for example, if I have a foodie friend who's gone to this, Italian restaurant, I'd love to probably go there because I have a lot of respect for my friends' basically restaurant choices. But I think that's more about how you explain your answers, and it's okay if you and I disagree on that. I think it's fine. I think at the end, when you came up with a bunch of metrics to kind of say how you're going to measure it, it'd be good to also highlight metrics that help you measure the usage or the retention of users who are using this product. So for example, what percentage of users who tried Google recommendation tried it again, right? That could be one way to kind of think about it. I think it would be interesting to do that. But overall, I think you followed a pretty good structure. I think I would also highlight about the potential trade-offs of this solution of like top 3 recommendations. What would be the reason that someone doesn't use it, or if that happens, like what does that indicate? Does that mean that people didn't like the recommendations, or they like recommendations, but every time their taste is different. So like, for example, today, maybe I feel like sushi. And if the recommendation was based on my, last few months of restaurant experiences, maybe it wouldn't be as relevant because now I'm thinking about something else. I think it's important to kind of highlight that. But thank you so much. I hope everyone here enjoyed listening to this mock interview. Again, my name is Bijan from Product Management Exercises. Feel free to check out the website for interview questions, product manager interview guides, and also scheduling mock interviews with other PMs. Website is productmanagementexercises.com.